I had been teaching combat strategy at the Galactic Military Academy for 17 cycles. I had seen thousands of species, each stronger, faster, or more dangerous than the last. But none were like humans. Fragile, small, surprisingly clever. That MY name is Velcara, a Threxian. 3 meters tall, for arms capable of crushing titanium, and an exoskeleton that could shrug off plasma fire. I had survived wars across 40 star systems before I became a teacher. And here I was, assigned to Advanced Combat Theory, a class designed to fail 92% of cadets. I took pride in that number. The semester began. 230 cadets from 63 species filed into my auditorium. Krill with telepathy, Borvaxians with armor, Sulcari who could phase through walls. And then, in the back corner, a single human girl. She looked fragile. 1.6 meters tall, brown hair and a ponytail, a uniform that hung like a costume she wasn't ready for. Her name was Kira Vance. "Welcome to Advanced Combat Theory," I said, my voice booming across the hall. 80% of you will fail this course. Half of those who pass will die in your first real engagement. If you cannot adapt faster than your enemy can kill you, leave now. Nobody left. They never do on the first day that I assigned their first exercise, a tactical simulation based on the Battle of Krovan 4. Teams of 5. Minimize casualties, secure the target, 72 hours. Dismissed. Kira walked out alone, gripping her data pad like a shield. I thought she wouldn't last a week. I was wrong. 72 hours later. The surprise most teams failed spectacularly. Flanking maneuvers, suppressing fire, standard tactics, uninspired. A few tried clever ideas and got annihilated immediately. Then came Team 17. Kira led a krill named Thix, a Borvaxian Grenel, a Sari called Whisper, and a Cheetic named Clack. She stood small among giants, but she activated her presentation calmly. Our solution resulted in 0 casualties and complete objective success in under 4 minutes, she said. Laughter. 0 casualties? Impossible. The scenario was designed to force tough choices. Soldiers were supposed to die. Commanders were supposed to accept it. Kira's plan? She didn't engage the ambush at all. She exploited a 12-second blind spot in the enemy patrol, bypassed the ambush, and secured the target. Fast, efficient, brilliant. I leaned forward. Cadet Vance. The purpose was to fight through the ambush. Instructor. Your parameters were to minimize casualties and complete the objective. You did that. By definition, you succeeded. The auditorium went silent. Her logic was flawless. She wasn't just surviving. She was thinking like a battlefield genius. The lesson: Kira Vance was a small human, fragile and underestimated. But she was unpredictable, efficient, and clever beyond measure. I had been teaching for 17 cycles. I had never seen a student like her. By week 12, the cadets were ready for their midterm, a multi-day field exercise inside the Academy's combat dome. A fully customizable battlefield designed to push them to their limits. That I divided the cadets into attackers and defenders. The defenders held a fortified position with limited resources. Attackers outnumbered them and had superior firepower. Historical battles from a dozen species informed the scenario. Thousands died for a few meters of territory. Brutal, calculated, and designed to teach one lesson. Sometimes soldiers died. I assigned Kira to the defending force, curious to see how she would handle a scenario where avoidance was impossible. She would have to fight. She would have to make hard choices. The first wave dawn broke over the simulated battlefield. Plasma fire lit the sky as attackers charged. Borvaxian veterans and krill tacticians commanded their squads. Chaos ensued. As expected, Kira's squad held the eastern wall, supposedly the weakest point. The attackers, led by the talented krill Zixther, spotted it immediately. They wheeled their forces to exploit the flank. Except, Kira's squad wasn't there. The fortifications were empty. Automated turrets, set on timers, activated as the attackers advanced. Half of Zixter's assault force was destroyed instantly. Meanwhile, Kira's team circled behind the enemy, striking supply depots, ambushing isolated units, and dismantling the attacker's logistics point. 3 days of combat ended in 18 hours. Kira had won. Efficient, ruthless, and completely unconventional. Confrontation with Authority Thrask, the Borvaxian commander, was furious. You abandoned your post. You disobeyed direct orders. Iadeptit, Kira replied calmly. The wall could not hold. My squad would have died, and the breach would have happened anyway. We achieved the objective efficiently. I studied her. Tactically, she was right. She had sacrificed protocol for survival and succeeded spectacularly. You would face court-martial in a real army, I said. She met my eyes without flinching. Then I accept the consequences. But I will not apologize for saving my squad. I laughed. Deep, resonating, involuntary laughter. In 17 cycles of teaching, I had never seen a student so chaotically brilliant. She understood what war truly required. Winning, not following rules. The human advantage. The rest of the cadets watched in awe. Kira's method defied everything taught at the academy. Not brute strength, not telepathic coordination, logic, observation, and risk-taking. She didn't fight the way others fought. She solved problems. She pushed boundaries, questioned protocol, and found loopholes in the rules of combat. 3 weeks after the final simulation, the graduation ceremony took place. The auditorium gleamed with coalition banners. Every cadet in formation. Every instructor observing that I watched from the front. Kira Vance entered last, as always, small, quiet, unassuming, but carrying the weight of every impossible choice she had turned into a victory. Commendations and recognition. Her name was called. Top of her class, commendations from multiple instructors, guaranteed position in Coalition Strategic Command. The crowd applauded. Some species whispered. Some stared. A human had achieved what no other had. Mastering advanced combat theory without following a single conventional rule. That I submitted my report recommending a complete overhaul of the curriculum, acknowledging that human thought and unconventional tactics needed to be accounted for in coalition doctrine. The farewell. On the final day, Kira came to my office. Instructor Velkera, she said, calm, firm. Thank you for failing us. For creating challenges hard enough that I had to think differently to overcome them. For being exactly the kind of teacher I needed, even if neither of us realized it at first. She extended her hand. A simple human gesture of respect. I reached down with one of my forearms, careful not to crush her fragile bones. Cadet Vance, I said, why did you attend the academy? Humans are new to the coalition. You could have stayed on Earth, lived a comfortable life. Why come here? She smiled. Because someone has to teach the galaxy that humans do not give up, that we will find a way to win, even when the universe says we cannot. And someone has to make sure the next time an instructor tries to teach a lesson about acceptable losses, there is a human in the room to say no. She paused at the door. Besides instructor, she said, you never asked the most important question. If the scenario was unwinnable, why did you teach it at all? Maybe somewhere deep down, you wanted someone to prove you wrong. Maybe you wanted a student to show you that impossible is just another word for not yet achieved. Maybe you were waiting for someone like me all along. She left without waiting for an answer. Reflection. I sat alone in my office, thinking about unwinnable scenarios, stubborn cadets, and the species that refuse to accept defeat, humans. I realized they rewrite the rules, challenge tradition, and refuse to accept limits. They turn impossible odds into new strategies, new ways of thinking, new victories, and I could not wait to see what they would do next. The cadets returned from the simulation exhausted, traumatized, but alive. The celebrations were brief. I stood at the podium, my arms clasped behind me, voice flat. You are all pleased with yourselves. You believe you have won. You think you accomplished something remarkable. Confusion spread. Heart still racing. Mind still processing the chaos of the final simulation, and I activated the holo display, showing the entire operation breakdown. Every movement, every calculation, every gamble. You failed. All of you. The room went silent. Cadets froze. Every species, every veteran, every observer understood the weight of my words. Kira speaks. I looked directly at Kira Vance. the small human who had just orchestrated the impossible. She stood calm, resolute. "Instructor Velkera," she said, voice steady. "May I ask a question?" "Proceed." "Why do we fail?" I recited the protocols, the risks, the errors, reliance on unproven technology, abandonment of standard procedure, delaying evacuation cycles, unnecessary risks to lives. "Yes," she replied, "in a real combat situation, those things could have killed us. But we completed the mission. 0 casualties. All civilians evacuated. The objective was achieved. So why did we fail?" Her words cut through the auditorium. Silence so thick you could hear the hum of the simulation processors. "The human perspective. I designed this scenario to teach you acceptance of loss," I said, voice rising. "To show that sometimes people die even when you try your best." She shook her head. "No, instructor. Humans learn something different. Impossible does not mean failure. It means the solution has not been found yet. We don't accept situations where everyone is expected to fail. We find a way. We rewrite the rules. We adapt. And we survive." Every cadet, every observer, every species in that auditorium realized what had just happened. A human had challenged the impossibility itself. And won. Instructor Velkera learns I should have expelled her. I should have crushed her for insubordination. But instead I laughed. Deep, resonating harmonic laughter. Why? Because she was absolutely right. In 17 cycles of teaching, I had never seen anyone think faster than I expected, defy every rule I enforced, outperform the simulation itself, teach me, the instructor, something about tactics and survival that I realized that the lesson I tried to teach had backfired. Not because of failure, but because Kira succeeded in a way I had never imagined. The takeaway: Kira had shown me what humans could do. They don't accept limits imposed by tradition or expectation. They challenge authority when necessary. They innovate under pressure, rewriting the rules of engagement. And most importantly, they refuse to accept defeat as inevitable. The rest of the cadets had passed the final exam, yes, but Kira had changed the definition of victory. 3 weeks after the midterm, the final examination was announced. Every remaining cadet, 41 in total, would participate. The scenario was classified until the moment it began. Rumors spread. It would be the hardest test ever devised, mathematically impossible to win, that I designed it myself. Every variable calculated to force failure. Every cadet would learn what defeat feels like. The combat dome loaded the scenario at 0600 hours. Cadets stood in formation, tense, anticipation thick in the air. Species pheromones mixed, creating a haze of nervous energy. I stepped to the podium. My forearms clasped behind my back, Threxian posture of authority. Your final examination begins now. The mission: you are a coalition rapid response team deployed to evacuate a civilian research station on Talaxis Prime's moon. **** station holds 273 civilians. Voron Raider fleet arriving in 6 hours. 12 warships with ground assault capability. Each transport holds 50 passengers, 90 minutes each way to safety. Limited ammunition, no reinforcements. Even under perfect conditions, only 150 civilians could escape. 123 would be left behind. You have 30 seconds to organize. Begin. Chaos erupted. Cadets formed teams, argued over command, calculated evacuation plans. Kira stood perfectly still, already running mental simulations. While others argued, she calculated the impossible. The first 3 transports transport 150 civilians saved. 223 remain. Transport 2, 100 saved. 173 remain. Transport 3, 150 saved. 123 remain. Cadets began to falter. Panic, moral stress, the cruel math of survival. Vexnail, a Krill cadet, assumed command, prioritizing essential personnel and families. Cold, efficient, but grim. The reality hit. They could not save everyone. Kira's solution: Kira walked into the command post. "Commander Vexnail, I can evacuate everyone." Silence. Every cadet froze. She explained. The research station had an experimental matter compression device designed for cargo. With modifications, it could expand transport capacity by 60%, fitting more civilians in each trip. A gamble. Risky, potentially catastrophic, but Kira worked calmly, squeezing into access panels, rewiring the system, recalculating power flows, while the clock ticked down 0.6 minutes to spare. The transport interior glowed faintly blue. Capacity increased from 50 to 82. Transport launched. First batch of 82 civilians saved. The final countdown one last trip remained. 91 civilians still on the station. The Voran fleet would arrive in 1 hour 40 minutes. The math said they couldn't evacuate in time. Kira turned to the civilians. How many are willing to fight for survival? Hands went up. Species after species, adults, and even children. 91 volunteers ready to do the impossible. The station became a war machine. Defensive weapons armed. Experimental devices activated. Reactor rigged as last resort deterrent. Every measure calculated to buy 10 minutes. Transport loaded. Voran fleet dropped from faster-than-light travel. 12 warships against one station and one transport. Chaos. Plasma fire. Fighters, missiles, energy shields stretched to the max. Kira remained in command, orchestrating the defense with precision, audacity, and cold logic. Fighters collided with debris. Plasma bolts deflected. Spatial distortion device destroyed 3 warships instantly. Reactor overload provided a final, catastrophic distraction. The transport jumped to faster than light with 2 seconds to spare. 0 casualties. The aftermath. I sat in the observation chair, arms still stunned. She had won the unwinnable scenario. The cadets returned, exhausted and traumatized. Victory celebrations lasted 60 seconds before I intervened. You think you've succeeded, I said, voice flat. But you failed. Kira stood small, exhausted, but unbroken. Instructor, she asked, why did we fail? The auditorium went silent. Her answer? We didn't fail. You designed a scenario expecting failure. But humans don't accept impossible. We find a way. We rewrite the rules. And sometimes we teach the teacher instead. For the first time in 17 cycles, I laughed. Not anger, not frustration, but pure admiration. Kira Vance had defied every expectation, every rule, and every probability. And she had taught me something no simulation could. Impossible is just a challenge waiting to be solved.